Hello, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the World Government Summit COVID-19 and Government webinar series. I'd like to remind everyone who's joining us today that we will have live Q&A, so please do send in your questions and mention the country and organization that you are sending in your questions from. Today's session is titled Consciousness in Challenging Times. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome our moderator for the session today, His Excellency Omar Saif, who's Assistant Minister for Public and Cultural Diplomacy from the United Arab Emirates. I would also like to introduce our esteemed panelist, Sadhguru Yogi, author and founder of Isha Foundation. I take great pleasure in welcoming you both.
Thank you very much. Sadhguru, it's really wonderful to be able to meet you.
Wonderful to converse with you, Omar. I've heard much about you. I heard you have a great Russian connection also.
Yes, that's true. And actually, if you didn't have this virtual screen behind me, you would be able to see a bust of Tolstoy behind me. So, yeah. It's an honor to be able to host you today, and I want you to know that you have many fans in the Emirates, both Emiratis and residents here. So you're not an unknown here at all. Your reputation definitely precedes you. You've written quite a few books, and one in particular that I found very interesting is on inner engineering. And I really like the idea that you could actually almost mechanically sort yourself out in a certain sense. I also find it fascinating that you think of yourself and you describe yourself as a contemporary guru, where you speak in the language of the modern era, but you're projecting ancient wisdom in these modern terms. And this is perhaps why you're so popular and so well able to connect. I'm also particularly surprised at the amount of energy that you have, because I do believe that you were doing a talk just before you came onto this one.
Yes, just now I finished one, and there are two more after this.
Well, I'm very impressed. Well, hopefully we're going to ask you questions that you don't know how to answer. So this will make this a memorable talk for you. I think what we would like to do is talk about basically initially the individual emotional state and well-being, and then we'd move on to something related more to governance and government itself and policymaking, and then maybe if we have time we'll go and look at broader global dynamics. So there is one question that everybody seems to be asking at the moment around COVID, which is, has anything changed? Are we now going to be all of a sudden kinder, more generous, more understanding, more environmentally aware? Are we coming to a different kind of consciousness, or are we going to revert back to our old ways? How would you see that?
Well, you're talking about a post-COVID scenario, but not a single scientific voice in the world has clearly told you when is post-COVID, all right? Nobody has made wild guesses are there, but there is no clear estimation when is the period that we can call as post-COVID. So, having said that, in my opinion, let us say by September, before fall time, if this is all over, I think within another 3-4 months' time, everybody will get back to everything as usual. But if it lasts for 12 to 18 months, then the very way people think and relate to people around them, life around them, could change dramatically, because that is a long enough time for people to even unconsciously engineer themselves in a different way. But 3-4 months, I don't think they are changed, because right now they are just waiting and raring to go, shopping and movies and this and that and everything, I know this. So if it goes away in the next 3-4 months, definitely, maybe economies in the nations may not allow them to bounce back very quickly, but in attitude, they will bounce back, economy will slowly, has to come back anyway.
Yes. I would agree with you. That's actually a good way of looking at it, that if this only lasts for a particular period of time, if it doesn't become a deeply entrenched way of life, then there's not much reason to expect people to move on. However, even in this time, people are suffering an immense amount of anxiety, around a number of issues. Number one, getting ill. Number two, avoiding getting ill. There's the economic anxiety of not being able to work or having lost their jobs. How would you suggest people, I mean, this is a great opportunity to put forward ideas on how people can actually begin to think about living a better life, living a more integrated life?
See, whether there is virus or no virus, we must first of all understand the present virus situation is just a social situation, it's not an existential change. Existentially, these things are always there. Socially, economically, for human society, something has changed. But existentially, nothing has changed. In fact, every other creature seems to be very happy that human beings are homebound, all right?
Yes.
So, we must understand the difference between existential shifts that happen in the world and social shifts that happen in the world, psychological turmoils that people go through. For all this, the most important thing that every human being needs to understand is human experience, whether it's joy or misery, agony or ecstasy, pain or pleasure, everything is generated from within us.
Yeah.
Human experience happens from within us. What happens from within us, at least, that must happen the way we want it. The world around us, the social situations, the national situations, the global situations, we are not the only players, there are too many players. So it will never happen 100% our way. Little bit our way, little bit somebody else's way, this is the way the world works. But what is happening within me must happen my way. This is very important. So right now, what human beings are generally suffering is not life. They're suffering their own thoughts and their own emotions. So, if you are suffering your own thought and emotion, what it means is the complexity of thought and the complexity of emotion that a human being is capable of, no other creature on this planet is capable of right now. So essentially, you are suffering the evolutionary promotions that you got. If you were like an earthworm, if you had the brain of an earthworm, you would be very peaceful. Right now, because you have the brain of a human being, you are not able to handle it. So essentially, the problem is, you have an intelligence that you don't know how to handle.
Yeah.
So when your own intelligence, if you turn it against yourself, then there is no way out of it. Nobody, no power in the universe can save you. Right now, this is the condition, because when they were going to work, it's always so, but now, to give an example of this virus times, when they were going to work, they thought the source of misery is their boss. When they were going to work, they thought the source of misery is traffic and something else and something else. Well, none of those things, you are happily at home, but no, you are not happily at home, you are home and suffering. This always happens to people, they come to me and say, Sadhguru, my boss is not even human, my mother-in-law is another alien creature, my wife, she's impossible, my husband is insufferable, like this. Then I tell them, you come here, stay with me, I will make sure your boss, wife, husband, nobody comes here, just you. We'll give you a nice place to stay, good food to eat, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Only thing is, I will make random checks on you. When I check, you must be joyful. If I find you miserable, I don't believe in feeding misery, so we won't feed you from that day. But if you're joyful, I will feed you for the rest of your life and take care of you. Well, in 24 hours' time, you should see in how many shapes they will twist themselves. Because human beings are miserable not because of something else, simply because they do not know how to handle their own thought and their own emotion. Two important things that they're suffering, two basic faculties which set us apart from every other creature is, we have a vivid sense of memory and we have a fantastic sense of imagination. This is what makes our life rich. What is wrong with an earthworm or a grasshopper or a locust for that matter? They're also fine. It is just that our experience of visions of memory and a fantasy of imagination. So being real, what is what may happen day after tomorrow they're suffering. This means they are not life, they are suffering.
Mhm. That's fantastic because it leads me into I know that you in your books have talked about memory and how we don't have just the memories that we have in our minds, but at least in particular, memory is what gives us our identity. We know where we came from. We know what happened a generation ago, 2 generations ago, 10 generations ago, and in a way, could it be that that is causing part of our misery? I'm wondering. Not to say that we're all miserable, but how do we maintain our identity and disconnect from the pain?
See, now you're just talking to me, I'm from India. Here we talk about, we say recent times means we mean 1,000 years ago.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So, we are talking about 10, 12 millennia of memory. So this makes the culture very rich, but
Yeah.
you can also get entangled in that culture.
Hmm.
You can very easily get tangled up in that culture, too much identified with it. Well, the richness of our culture comes in the form of our clothing, our food, the way we live, the way we greet each other, the way we meet and mingle, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But this does not fundamentally make you a human being. What makes you a human being is the basic existential life throbbing within us right now. If this life is taken out of me, this body and what this is as good as the mud on which I am walking upon. So, essentially, fundamentally who we are, this is not in our experience. We are trying to lean on the memory too much. If we
Yeah.
are conscious of who you are and then you have a memory, this memory is fantastic because you can wear this as a cultural raiment, it makes your life rich and wonderful. But if you start believing that is the truth about your life, then it entangles you.
That is actually really interesting because it also fits into some of the discussions we've been having here over the last few months and years. We have a very solid understanding of where we came from. We call it, our traditions, our way of life, our historical understanding of what our forefathers used to do. And yet we don't want that necessarily to be sacred because we want to free ourselves to operate in the modern world. We want to be not just consumers, we want to be producers and participants as well. And your idea of maybe separating it and focusing on our existence as human beings first may be a pathway to liberating ourselves a little from a past that can be very, I don't want to say greedy, but that's the immediate word that comes to mind.
No, the thing is, see why so many people, especially ancient cultures, are falling back on their
Yeah,
memory, the greatness of their culture, all this is, well, we appreciate things that have been done by people who came here before us because we didn't start the world, all right?
yeah,
There were generations before us, we appreciate and admire them for what they have done. But the reason why individual people so strongly identified with their cultures and the memories of the culture is because nothing significant is happening in your life right now. This is very
yeah,
important.
yeah,
If something really significant was happening in your experience right now, what happened yesterday will not be so relevant for you. When nothing very significant is happening, you will always gloat about the greatness of yesterday.
yeah,
Yesterday may be 100 years for somebody, for 1,000 years for somebody else, 10,000 years for somebody else. But it is yesterday. Yesterday means that which is over. That which is over has become very significant because that which is happening right now is not significant enough. That is the whole problem.
That's fascinating because we know that India is very much on the rise, and it is also asserting a sense of a place in the world and a identity. What allows that to happen now in India, and what doesn't permit that to happen in the Arab world, for example? Is it a sense of understanding, a consciousness that you talk about, or is it just a
I…
coincidence?
I wouldn't want to pass a judgment on a whole population, but uh, please, I would like all your Arab friends and people of Arabia to consider this as a thought,
Of course.
not as an opinion. This is not my opinion, I'm just looking at it. I think one reason is being in a desert, being in a wide open desert, there is not much visual input. So because there is not much visual and auditory inputs, mulling on your memory is a natural process. So they keep on, like chewing the cud, like how a camel chews its cud, you're chewing your memory, what happened yesterday, what happened in my father's time, in my grandfather's time, because there is not enough input on a daily basis. Suppose you were in a tropical forest, you will never think about yesterday because too much is happening out here in the forest. I'm saying, if we were here 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, the input that is going into those who live in a desert and the input that goes into those who live in tropical lands is very, very different. So because of that, this is just my… I'm just thinking through right now. It is possible, because of that, people who lived in desert always talk about the greatness of their fathers and forefathers and things like that, and from that comes the context of lineages being very important. But in a culture like India, lineages have never been important. People have tried to create lineages, but it's never really worked. It works for 2, 3 generations and then it breaks down right there because everybody is aspiring all the time. Because the fundamental ethos of this nation has been that this has not been a nation of believers, this has always been a nation of seekers. So the first and the most highly valued thing in this culture is that when somebody says, I do not know, the yogic culture completely identifies. We always teach people to identify with your ignorance. Because our knowledge, however much we have, essentially what we call as knowledge is what is in our memory. Whatever we have accumulated in the form of memory, it may be in our head, it may be in our book, or it may be in the computer today or in a chip, but essentially it is memory that we are calling as knowledge. Whatever knowledge we might have acquired, how much ever the volume of it is, in comparison to the creation and the cosmic space, it is a minuscule. If you identify with that knowledge that you have, you will become a minuscule in your approach to life. But our ignorance is boundless. When we identify with our ignorance, then there is a boundless possibility. I think this one dimension of India has held it together, 1,000 years of invasions, very cruel subjugation in terms of occupy… we've been an occupied nation, very strongly occupied for about 250 years. In spite of that, the aspirational dimension of India is not gone, simply because it has always been a land of seekers, not of believing.
Fascinating. I think, your analysis of the desert environment and its effect, I mean, there's certainly something to think about there. I recently spent about 10 days with some people in the desert, and one of the things that came out was that what looks like a barren landscape comes alive in many different ways. There are all kinds of animals that will turn up, including scorpions and snakes. The other thing is that, you begin to notice all of the different kinds of sunsets that take place every evening, and you can begin to differentiate, and you have, again, set of memories. It's also a very oral culture. So it's, poetry has a huge effect. But you're absolutely right. When you look at greener lands, forested lands, or jungle lands, there is so much more to think about. There's so much more visual input. So you may have a point there. India also has kind of holds a fascination for many of us because of its immense diversity and its ability to naturally be a very, very tolerant place. Again, so many different groups, all claiming, or at least some of them claiming, absolute knowledge, and yet they all live, historically, they've all lived very peacefully. Do you think this kind of tolerance is something that can be taught, or does it have to, sort of emerge from the culture? Because I think you may know we have a Ministry of Tolerance. Last year was our year of tolerance. We are actually in a region where the issue of tolerance is very, very important, in the sense that for a long time it has been ignored, and now it has been brought to the fore. How do you see tolerance in social terms?
See, Uh, Please don't be offended by what I say. I have also had a chat with your Sheikh, who is the Minister of Tolerance at one
Yes,
time.
yes,
I told him something similar at that time. Say, for example, suppose you have a friend
yeah.
and you visit this friend's house every day, and after many years you realized your friend has only been tolerating you. Would you like to go there again, I'm asking?
I'm a humble man. My friends tolerate me and I accept that. Yeah, I
But
don't know so much.
that's not it. Tolerance is not that anybody seeks. Right
Yeah,
now, we are settling for tolerance because we think the only alternative to fighting and war is to tolerance.
yes,
But this is like a little better step down from violence, like
right.
direct violence. Instead of that, okay, at least I tolerate who you are.
Hmm,
But as long as I tolerate you, my resentment will build over a period of time.
hmm,
Every day I have to tolerate you. This is
mhm.
very difficult. Can I tell you a joke?
Please do, yeah.
There is a man called Shankaran Pillai in India, maybe you have not met him, but you will someday.
Inshallah, yeah. Good.
So, he was a very abusive man with his wife and verbally abusing, sometimes even getting physical. So all the time abusing and angry. But whatever abuse he heaped upon her, she was always peaceful, doing what she has to do. One day
Hmm.
out of sheer frustration, he asked, however much I abuse you, you're always peaceful. How do you manage this? She said, I clean the toilet. He asked,
All the problem.
what is cleaning the toilet got to do with your peace?
Yeah,
Just yesterday I was so abusive to you, but you were peaceful. How is that? She said, I cleaned the toilet 3 times yesterday. How does this help, cleaning the toilet?
yeah.
She said, I use your toothbrush. So,
Yeah,
tolerance will lead to these kind of things. Because if I tolerate you, then
yeah,
slowly resentment will build within me and one day I will do something horrible.
yeah,
So, tolerance as a word, people may be using it as a peaceful coexistence. In that context, it is okay. But why tolerate each other? See, for example, in the nature, like you were talking about life in the desert, but if you… here, our backyard is 10,000 square miles of rainforest. If you walk here, I'm saying one step if you take, let's say a meter-long step if you take, in that 1 meter, there will be 25 different creatures crawling upon all over the place. But they all live together.
sure.
They all live together because what you call as creation is one seamless integration of everything like that. They're not kept separately, insects separately, worms separately, lions separately,
Yeah,
this separately. No, everything is seamlessly integrating and living. So this is not toleration, they all clearly understand, though they have a much smaller brain than us, all of them clearly understand we cannot exist without the other.
yeah,
Unfortunately, human beings have gotten into this mode that they can exist without the other, not only about other human beings, that even about other creatures. Only
mhm,
slowly with all these ecological sciences, people are beginning to understand, okay, we need the insects, we need the earthworms, we need the animals, otherwise we won't be living here. Even we need trees has been forgotten, that now it is coming back. So, the very nature of existence is a seamless coexistence. That should be the model for building any society. That's what India is. Ancient India has always been like that, a seamless coexistence. We never even see, only if I think there is something wrong with you, then I have to tolerate you.
mhm,
When I don't even think anything wrong with you, I'm excited about the differences, then there
yeah,
is no tolerance. So
yeah,
this is what needs to happen. Human beings should be excited about the differences we have.
yeah,
Right now, most nations have been formed on the basis of sameness of race, religion, language, ethnicity like this. India is one country where it was never thought of in terms of sameness. In India, if you drive 50 kilometers, people look different, talk different, eat different, dress different, everything is different. Every 50 kilometers, people are different.
yeah,
And it's always been okay because we never thought being different is a problem.
Mhm. What did our minister say to you? 'Cause
Sheikh Nayan is a good friend now.
no,
Uh,
he's a great man. He's a wonderful
He's a
person.
wonderful man. And when I was talking and he was in the front row, I did not know he is the Minister of Tolerance. I spoke about tolerance demolishing tolerance totally without knowing that he is… Then after the talk is over, they're coming and introducing him to me saying he is the Minister of Tolerance. I apologized to him, sir, I didn't mean anything wrong.
No, there are many different views of the word tolerance, and I think for us, I think it's just a placeholder for a time when we won't need things like that anymore. But we've come in the region. I think you'll know that we came to a stage where even basic tolerance was a massive requirement because of this.
Instead of confrontation,
Yes,
tolerance is a
yeah,
better step. It's a wonderful step,
absolutely,
all
yeah.
right.
Yeah, we're going to follow that with communication, learning about each other, swapping stories and so on. One of
The important thing is we must get excited about our differences.
yeah, yeah.
I'm just thinking if your headgear works better than mine, I'm a change.
Well, if only you knew. I have a question. I have always wanted a beard like yours, but I'm not allowed to have it because my loved ones will not accept it. How did you manage?
I didn't do anything about it, so it happened.
Um, I also noticed in your writings and the way in which you describe things, language is extremely important in the way you present your ideas. And I'd never really thought. I always knew that trees were vital. They're the lung of the earth. Forests are incredibly important, but I never actually thought of it as we are actually in sync with each other. I breathe in what the tree breathes out, and so on. And actually, just the way you described it created a very quick connection with me that years and years of listening to it haven't. So how important is language, and how much time do you spend thinking about how you explain things? Because the way you explain it is fascinating.
That's because I don't think. People are always asking me, recently I was riding with some young boys and I'm a little bit I'm little strong on the throttle. So,
I see it.
so they were asking, Sadhguru, what are you thinking when you're riding? I said, why am I thinking? I'm just riding. Because I don't think. The thing is with me, right from my childhood, I kind of made perception more important than expression.
Mm,
That is, what you absorb is far more important than what you throw out of you.
mhm,
So I think in today's world, one of the major problems in the world is people have no perception. They have
mhm.
accumulation of information, but they have
Yeah,
no perception. For them, a tree is just a word, a tree is not a living thing.
yeah,
But if they had paid attention, this would be very simple. Probably you got this from, like how we started this Project Green Hands and Rally for Rivers movements. See, when I saw that what is needed is tree plantation, we have to increase the green cover in a tropical land, otherwise our land will become desert.
yeah.
Desertification is happening very rapidly, UNCCD, and we are working together as partners right now. So, when I saw that this is happening and when I tried to speak to people about trees, they look like, what is
Mm,
it that you're talking about?
yeah.
What is it? So I knew that it has to be an experiential thing. So, first 6 years actually, I spent time planting trees in people's heads, which is very difficult terrain. So I devised a simple experiential process that you sit under a tree and you close your eyes and inhale and exhale, and
Yeah,
actually you can experience this, that one half of your breathing apparatus is actually the tree.
yes,
Without it, you wouldn't be breathing.
yeah.
So once this became a reality for thousands of people, now you can't stop them planting trees, they are just going everywhere and doing it. They don't need any inspiration from me.
Uh, I actually read that quote out to my family today. about sitting with the tree for a few minutes a day. I can't remember, it was 11 minutes or… And in any case, it's an experiment that I shall be carrying out very soon.
I'm sorry, I didn't answer that question about language.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to say this. It's just that I went to school only when it was absolutely necessary. So I did not really… It's very difficult to explain to people. I never learnt any grammar, either in English language or in our local languages, I never learnt grammar.
Yeah.
Even today, I don't know what is a noun, what is a pronoun, what is it, okay? I just know the language from what I've heard from people. So, I made a very conscious and a stringent effort to remain uneducated. Why I'm saying this is something that I noticed very early on in my life. See, the moment a child is born, everybody is trying to teach him something.
Yeah.
Parents, every other adult, teachers, pundits, priests, all kinds of people, everybody trying to teach you something that's not worked in their life.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So, I learned to pay attention without giving any meaning to whatever they are saying. I never ignored anybody, always paid attention,
Yes.
but never gave any meaning to what they are saying because I looked at them and I know what they are saying never worked in their life, obviously. People are saying great things all over the place, but it never worked. So, I mean, to put it in perspective, my daughter, I've been traveling insanely. Only for the first time in the last 40 years, I stayed home for over 75 days just now, thanks to the virus. So, though I've been traveling and I kept a very intimate relationship with my girl, and when she was around 13 years of age, she went to school and something happened in the school, she was a bit disturbed about that. She came home and then she said, as a rule, I made a rule because we were traveling always, I told everybody, nobody teach her anything. This was a little baby traveling with me, so I said, you will not teach her anything. No ABC, no 1, 2, 3, no Mary had a little lamb. Because I didn't care whether Mary had a lamb or not, what does it mean to me whether she had a lamb or not? So I said, don't teach her anything. Because nobody taught her anything, by the time she was 18 months old, this may sound like an exaggeration, but this is real. By the time she is 18 months old, she was speaking 3 languages fluently. Without any ABC, nothing, she just speaks like that. And by the time she's 4 years of age, before she went to school, she had over 800 friends. She thought they are friends, but they're all adults. Wow. All 30, 40-year-old people, but she thinks they're all her friends because I never created that thing for her that I'm elder to you, you are younger to me, you must listen to me. This was never there. She thought they're all her equals and she spoke to them and addressed them by their name. Even today she calls me by my name, my first name, not by as father or anything. So one day she came disturbed. So she said, you're teaching everybody so many things, you're not telling me anything. I said, see, I don't do anything unsolicited. Now that you've come, you sit down here.
Yes.
I said, this is all you have to do with your life. Never look up to anything or anybody. Never look down on anything or anybody. This is all. She just looked at me like this, her eyes asking me the question, what about you, kind of thing. I said, especially me, if you want to know the value of who I am, you must see me for what I am. If you look up to me, maybe you will nail one of my pictures on your wall. That's not going to make any difference, that's a waste of me. You must look at me just for who I am. Then I will be valuable to you. Everything in this life is valuable to you only if you look at it the way it is, not because you look up to it or look down on it. So if you do this one thing, your perspective gets settled, you see everything the way it is. Once you see everything the way it is, your ability to navigate through the world becomes an effortless process. So my language comes from that basis.
You've made me very aware of the way in which I think about things. I look for the word first, and then I look for the world around me. So I'll do a few more experiments.
Too much education you've got.
Unfortunate, yeah. Must have been basic insecurity. It led us to that. God forbid. Um, well, also one of the things that you touched on is, well, you are this guru and a very high level, very wise and knowledgeable man, and yet at the same time you run an organization. How do you manage to marry those two sides? Just to give you a very humble example from my life, office politics has always been a fascination for me, to watch it from afar, never to get involved. And I always wonder how organizations move ahead when there can be so much bitterness between the people involved. How do you manage to get past that, if you do? This is for our corporate viewers.
Well, I was running a program for one of the top corporations in the world.
Mm-hmm.
The top 25 executives of that company, I don't want to name the company, they were with me for a 3-day retreat. And 9 of our volunteers, they were 25 in number, I had 9 volunteers. The entire foundation is run by volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So, these volunteers are all over the place, fixing everything, doing all this, whatever is needed to support me. So after 2 days, these executives, they asked me, Sadhguru, where do you get such people?
Yeah.
Then I say, you don't get such people, you got to make them. Because they're always looking for attrition, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wherever they see good people, they want to pick them.
Yeah, right.
So I said, you have to make them. Then they asked, how do you make them? I said, you should make them fall in love with you. Oh, is that so? How do we do that? I said, first you must fall in love with them. Then they said, oh, they don't pay us for that. So, when your entire life's activity is based on what will I get, what will I get, what will I get, life becomes very mundane and simplistic.
Yeah.
Because what will you get? You will get nothing, all right?
Yeah.
You will get nothing, everybody leaves this world with nothing. You will get nothing. The only thing that you have as a human being is, in terms of your experience, the profoundness of your experience. In terms of activity, the impact that you can make on maximum number of lives. This is all you have. It doesn't matter what is the nature of your work, this is all it is, whether it's politics or diplomacy or spirituality or business or whatever, this is all you have. Profoundness of your experience, the impact of your activity, this is all it is. So for this, why are you making it so complicated? Because without profoundness of experience, there is no real impact. It is a surface impact. You cannot cause impact in other people's lives unless there is some profound experience within you. Well, even the basic unit of a society, which we call as family, which is an organization by itself. Essentially, why people have made family so important in their life is because this will bring them a little profoundness of experience, some sense of love, togetherness, stuff like that. And this is the only place most people can only impact their family and nothing beyond their family. Or even there, they may be failing to impact them. We don't know. But the reason why family is so important is, this one is it could nurture profoundness of experience and it allows you to impact. So, you are important for those people. Why? Because in some way you have impacted them. So, this sense of impact need not be limited to biological connections that we have, nor profoundness of experience need to be limited to our biological limitations. Because once we have become human, there is something within us which is always longing to expand. If it finds a very basic physical expression, normally it gets labeled as sexuality. If it finds an emotional expression, we call this love. Something that is not you, you want to experience it as myself. That is the whole idea. Whether it's sexuality, love, if it finds mental expression, we will call it conquest, ambition, or you're from UAE, so we can just call it shopping.
But we do it with style.
Not you, others come and do it. So if it happens consciously, then we call it yoga. Because the word yoga means union. The word
Yes.
yoga does not mean twisting and turning your body. Word yoga means union. That means the boundaries of your individuality you exceeded. You
Yeah.
went beyond the limitations of your own physical boundaries. That
Yeah.
is when we say you are in yoga. So essentially, everybody is longing for that union. Somebody tries physically, somebody tries emotionally, somebody tries with their mental projections. But if you consciously approach this, it will be a very fulfilling and settling process, because once you experience something or somebody as a part of yourself, then we don't have to teach you any morality. No ethics are needed, no guidelines are needed, no scriptures are needed to tell you, this is how you should behave with another human being.
Yeah.
That human being that you experience as a part of myself, with that, you are perfect in your behavior, you will be fine.
So Sadhguru, I'm asking, as they say, for a friend um, who has read your book, and he would like to know. Basically, he wakes up in the morning, comes down for breakfast. His family are sitting around the table. Everybody is in a bad mood except for him because he's read your book. He's happy, he's joyful, he's full of spirit, and everybody is looking at him with anger in their eyes. Is he not better off also pretending that he is sad and miserable in order to avoid their increasing frustration with him? How can he pull it off?
Well, see, both joy and misery are infectious.
Yeah. Yes,
So, if
very good.
everybody around you is miserable, you have an immense responsibility to be joyful. But if you laugh in their face when they're unhappy
Yeah, okay.
see,
You have to choose the time, I think.
yes, yes. They see, joy does not mean you have to do… See, the freedom of joy is that you can conduct your life whichever way it is necessary.
Yes.
See, miserable people are not flexible, they are rigid, this is the way I am. But if you're joyful, you can conduct it whichever way they want. So if you're very joyful at the breakfast table, they are all miserable, you can at least try to sing a sad song for them, for the mood that they are in. I'm sure they'll burst out laughing.
Again, it wasn't for me, a friend, as I say. But I'll tell you how it goes tomorrow. Um, Sadhguru, we're coming kind of to the end of our time. We've got about 15 minutes left. There are a couple of questions. One particular question seems to be repeating itself. How does one deal with the loss of a job at this time? And in the past, you could lose a job and then always find another job. Right now, the whole world economy seems to be in a different state and shrinking. And then you have, of course, the replacement of humans with technology and with artificial intelligence. How can one orient oneself? How does one deal with the anxiety, the fear, the doubt?
Well, that dimension is going to happen in plenty. It's going to be a big shift in terms of how many people will manage to get back to the same jobs that they were holding 3 months ago is a
Yeah,
big question mark.
of
As
course,
I
yeah.
said, that also depends on how long this period lasts. If it lasts for 9 months, 12 months, then I would say, I don't know, I'm not an economist or something, I'm just making a guess. At
Sure.
least 30% of the people will not be able to fit back into the same jobs with the same level of earning, minimum 30%. Will not get the same salaries, even if they get the same job, they will not get the same earning that they were having. That means their economic well-being will come down 30%. If it lasts for 18 months to 24 months, I hope it doesn't,
Yeah,
but there is no projection anywhere to tell us it will end in a certain period of time. Because many places that we thought where the virus is over, the second wave is already beginning to happen in various places, so we do not know how it'll behave. If it goes up to 24 months, I would say nearly 40 to 45% of the people may lose their jobs. So it's very important, all nations, I know for a nation like yours, this may not be relevant what I'm saying, but for most nations, for example in India, even now about 62% of the country's population are involved in agriculture. This
yeah,
is a big safety net. This is a
yes,
big safety net that if agriculture happens well now, there's a whole lot of reverse migration, both from your country and also from various cities in India, they're all coming back to the rural areas. So people get involved in agriculture. One important thing for me is that whatever happens, your salaries go down, you wear less number of clothes, maybe you'll have only one pair of shoes, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
as long as people don't starve to death, as
Yes.
long as humanity doesn't move towards starvation, I feel it's okay. It's all right, we will adjust to the new realities, all of us,
Yeah.
irrespective of who we are, whether running large businesses, small businesses, institutions, governments, every one of us will have to adjust to a new reality. To give a perspective, probably we may have to live like how we were living in 2010 or maybe how we were living in 2000. Well, at that time, we didn't think it was so bad. So
No.
it is only the conveniences that have come to us in the last 10, 20 years that we may lose, but we may go back. But anyway, there's a technology. See, you are sitting in Moscow probably, and I'm here and we are talking and it's fine. And most of the audience are in UAE, it's perfectly fine. If I had to fly to Moscow or you had to come to India or both of us have to go to UAE, just see
Yeah.
how much fuss we were doing. Now we are doing it this way. Well,
Yeah.
I know something is lost, but still we are able to function. So with all the new technologies, we should not crib, we should see how to adjust to the new reality, because every other creature is feeling happy about the lockdown. Yes,
Yes.
every other life on this planet is feeling happy.
Yeah.
If human beings step back a little bit, it's a good thing, because we were not driving the world's economy with a plan on our mind. We are simply driving it, and we
Yeah.
know very well one day it has to crash somewhere, but we were simply driving it, every one of us, no exceptions in this. Every one of us trying to drive at full throttle, not knowing, not having a steering wheel in our hands. Right
Yeah.
now, it's come to a little bit of a slowdown or a stop. I think this is a time to rethink how we want to restructure our economies. Is it always about more, more, more? Because is it possible to have more, more, more? Is there somewhere where we are stored up more so that we can supply to our populations endlessly? There is no such thing. This is a time to definitely start looking at in terms of, as I said earlier,
Yeah.
how to create the value and the quality of our life is what is the profoundness of experience I have in my life and what impact can I cause with my activity. This is all it is. For impact, today there are technologies, you can be anywhere and talk to anybody in the world, so you can create impact if you're creative about it. And in terms of profoundness of experience, at least see, if I had to travel to Moscow or travel to UAE, that much flight time, I can meditate now.
Yeah.
Profoundness of experience, I'm saying. At least the flight times, travel times, people should be able to make use of to create a profoundness of perception and experience.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very pleased actually that I don't have to fly anymore. I used to fly all the time. And it was a profoundly painful experience. There are a couple more questions that I'd like to ask. I'm trying to understand the role of the body. I mean, we are embodied minds. We think through our bodies. We perceive the world through our bodies. We exist through our bodies. At the same time, in many ways, the body can be so burdensome to us. We don't know how to operate it. We eat the wrong things. We drink the wrong things, and we manifest a lot of kind of pain through our bodies. How can one orient oneself towards one's own body?
When we talk about food, immediately people will put up a cultural defense.
Yeah.
See, cultures are evolved, cultures in the world have evolved according to the geographic conditions in which they existed.
Yeah.
Like you come from a desert culture, so you eat one kind of food. So people in India, South Indians eat one way, in the central India they eat another way, North India they eat another way, in the mountains they eat differently. Because all cultures and habits and food habits have essentially been cultured by the geographical conditions of that land.
Yeah.
Because those were times when you were not flying away, so generally we lived in the same place where we were born for our entire lifetimes most of the time. Most human beings, except a few adventurers and maybe soldiers and business people traveled out, that was a very small percentage. Most of the population were born in the same house and died in the same house, always. They never ever went anywhere else. Their movements was very, very restricted. So naturally, everything that they did, what they ate, how they dressed, everything was related to the geographical conditions. Having said that, in a particular condition of life, maybe certain things which are available may be most suitable for our body. Now, if I talk to my Arab friends, they always say, Sadhguru, you must eat some date, at least one date a day you must eat, then only you can be healthy. I say, all right, if you bring me the Lebanese dates, I will have one, but where do I go and pluck dates in South India? So, like everybody has these things based on the geographical conditions, and this is very important because the land that we walk upon and the body that we have assimilated are not very different. So in the yogic culture, there is a guideline for the yogi, this is not for an ordinary householder. For a yogi, you must eat only what is grown within the radius of the distance that you can walk in a day.
Oh, wow.
Assuming a man can walk about 30 to 40 kilometers a day, in that radius only you must eat because you live there, you walk barefoot on the land, you are connected with the land. If you eat food from that place, whatever it is, however meager it is, you will still live well because there is a relationship between the source, which is the soil. See, we may think many fanciful things about ourselves, but this is just the soil that we walk upon. Most people don't get this till you bury them.
Yes, I suppose so.
The soil and you, if you are related and the soil that you're walking upon is from what you eat, most of the things that you consume. But today, because of transportation and other things, in India if you go to the market today, I'm sure in UAE it's even more so, the apples are from Australia and something else is from New Zealand, something else is from South America. Like this we are eating. It's all right for taste if you consume something, for the pleasure if you do something, but our staple diet must always come from the land upon which we are living right now.
Well, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking if we applied that rule, if I applied that rule to myself, I would lose a lot of weight very, very quickly.
I don't see much weight on you.
And I think I owe it to the summit to ask about government. Again, coming back to the idea of well-being and the idea of, you know, the power to regulate, the power to pass laws, the power to, you know, promote certain aspects of life. How do you think, or how do you see governments actually promoting well-being? And is it possible, or or should it come from society? Should it come from, you know, interactions like this, or?
See, the larger well-being of a given society is definitely a consequence of the policies that a government or the rulers pass. It's very, very important. So this is why a wise collection of people as ruling establishment anywhere is most important, because what sort of policies they pass will determine the lives and the quality of lives of millions and millions of people. So definitely policy is a very important part. But can policy bring individual well-being? No. No policy can bring individual well-being because individual well-being can only happen from within. So what happens from within cannot be brought forth by a rule in the country. So these are two dynamics that we need not juxtapose them as opposites. One is to create an ambience. The policy will create an ambience, but the flowering of the plant needs to happen by its own nourishment and its ability and its strength. So individual human beings have to create… See, if let us say individual human beings are all happy and doing wonderful, they're healthy and happy. Now, will the society do well? Definitely it will do well. But even if they're very happy, if there are bad policies, slowly they will run down their happiness. Out of bad policies, you can run down people's happiness, making it very compulsive, making it whatever. So, policy and individual well-being are two different things. But without the ambience of a good policy, most people will not be able to be happy all by their own nature. Most people, unfortunately, are not capable of that.
Interesting, because I think that kind of reflects very much the view of the leadership, and I think it needs maybe more focus, more expression. A lot of people look to government in our region, at least, as the benefactor, the giver, the enabler, and basically the supplier of happiness all the way to the limit. And yet, there is a recognition within government that we provide the infrastructure, we provide the opportunity, we provide the direction, but actually you as an individual human being have an obligation to step up and to take responsibility for yourself. Nobody can be happy for you. You must actually make that effort. You cannot become physically fit unless you do something about it yourself. You can't be healthy unless you make the kind of the decisions to eat properly, to exercise, and so on. Somebody here has one last question. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to reflect and reprioritize. Am I wrong in my optimistic thinking?
They're saying about this virus lockdown, is it?
Yes.
I hope that it will be only once in a lifetime, that it doesn't happen too often.
Yeah,
But
perfect. Yeah.
now now that you've realized a little bit of reflection and paying attention makes a difference, every day you must take at least a few minutes, if not hours, at least a few minutes to enhance the quality of who you are. When this lockdown happened initially, people were asking Sadhguru how to manage, what to do, because initially we thought the lockdown is only for 3 weeks, that's how it was announced in India. Then it went on getting extended. When it was 3 weeks, I told them, in 3 weeks' time, this much you must do. Whatever is your physical fitness, don't go to any doctor or anything, in your own gauge, what is your level of physical fitness? In 3 weeks, make it 10% better.
Yeah.
Your mental capabilities, in 3 weeks, 10% better. Your emotional balance, 10% better. Whatever is the nature of your work, your competence, 10% better.
Yeah.
If all of us in this world become 10% better, what a wonderful world. What a fantastic world we'll live in if all of us become 10% better. And once we have tasted 10%, what 10% better feels like, will we just stay there? We will naturally strive for much, better things. Right now, our idea of better has been only in terms of accumulations that we have. I'm living better than you means I have more cars, bigger house, more diamonds, more whatever. Better does not mean I'm more joyful than you, I'm more functioning more intelligently than you, more balanced than you, more wise than you. No, that's not what it means. Better simply means I have more than you. This has to go. I know this is not good for a shopping complex owners and things like that, but this has to come for the sake of this planet and for the sake of future generations. This has to happen, and for the sake of this generation, because you cannot, as you already said, you cannot bring happiness from outside. We can bring comfort and convenience from outside. We cannot bring joy or happiness from outside, nor can we buy misery from outside, we must know this. Both are created, all human experience is created from within. So if this understanding and if this realization doesn't come to humanity, we are driving this economic engine without a plan, without a steering wheel, it's just going. We are living as if we are the last generation. This has to change. If virus has brought wisdom, I bow down to the virus, because if I could not do… if virus does what I could not do, I will definitely bow down to the virus.
Well, Sadhguru, I really am very, very grateful for this opportunity to have been able to speak to you. I have done my best to try to represent other opinions and other questions, but I was greedy and I asked you mostly my own questions. I really feel touched and enlightened, and you have a big fan here. I'll have to now hand over to our controllers, specifically Reem, and thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Omar, hope we'll catch up with you somewhere, I don't know whether in Moscow or in Dubai.
I'll come and visit if you invite. Thank you.
That'll be wonderful.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Reema.
Thank you, Sadhguru. I think it's been a pleasure. We've all got, one thing in the MENA region for a lot of it is the weekend. So, and I think for all of us, we're going to be thinking about all of these things of, wait, I need to reprioritize a few things that I've been doing. And I think, like you mentioned, Sadhguru, the virus has been a silver lining. It's enlightened us to think about things outside the box. It's enlightened us to think about things we never used to prioritize, our health, connections with our families, things like that. So thank you so much. And thank you, Your Excellency, also for joining us today. It's been a true pleasure. I wish you all to stay safe, take care, and hopefully we get to meet wherever, whether it's in the UAE or India, hopefully very soon together.
We will definitely meet. Thank you.
Please take care and stay safe.
Thank you.